The weight of the Empire's secrets and the cold shadow of the Emperor's suspicion had forced Camilla into a calculated retreat. Her survival depended on a sharp pivot toward the tangible: gold, influence, and the relentless expansion of her neglected commercial empire. Between the nationwide scaling of the magic stone trade and the frantic preparations for a second coffee branch, her days were a blur of ledger books and high-stakes negotiations. She moved through her life like a whirlwind, managing VIPs at the Ghost Trading Post and refining the cuts of rare blue diamonds, all while wondering if she might eventually need to master a cloning spell just to keep up with the sheer volume of her own ambition. In the midst of this mechanical grind, Zeno had become a distant thought. He was grown enough to navigate the spectral world without her constant vigilance. Or so she had convinced herself. The reality of her exhaustion hit her during a quiet carriage ride home. Massaging her stiff shoulders, Camilla looked out at the passing streets of the capital, her mind still racing with the details of the Gracia trade deal. It was a fleeting glimpse of a familiar figure that broke her trance. There, crouched before a crumbling, skeletal remains of a house, was Zeno. He wasn't alone. The sight of him interacting with a spirit was nothing new, but the creature before him was different. It was a dog, thin, translucent, and vibrating with a desperate, heartbreaking joy as it licked at Zeno's hands. Upon stepping out into the cool air, the story of the creature unfolded through Zeno's spectral inquiries. The dog was Nana. She had been the loyal companion of an elderly woman who, upon falling ill, had been whisked away by her son. In the transition, the loyal animal had been deemed an unnecessary burden and left behind to wither away in the silence of an empty home. Nana had died waiting, and in death, she continued her vigil at the doorstep of a family that had already forgotten her. Despite her practiced indifference, Camilla found herself reaching out. The sensation of ghostly fur beneath her palm was a secret she guarded fiercely. To touch the dead was to invite a level of complication she could ill afford. Yet, as Nana nuzzled into her hand, craving a warmth she could no longer physically feel, Camilla's icy resolve began to thaw. The dog's lack of resentment was an affront to Camilla's own cynical worldview. It was a foolish, pure devotion that demanded a response. Masking her growing attachment with her usual cold pragmatism, she promised to return before making a swift exit with Zeno, leaving behind Nana panting, wagging her tail. The following afternoon, the manor's kitchen became the stage for a scene that left the head chef, Gerard, in a state of bewildered shock. Camilla, the woman who negotiated fortunes without blinking, was meticulously preparing a meal of the finest premium beef. She ignored the chef's protests about the quality of the meat and the absurdity of seasoning a meal for a dog. To her, the act was a silent protest against the cruelty of the living. Returning to the ruins of the cottage, Camilla watched as Nana devoured the spectral essence of the meal with a vigor that belied her ghostly form. The dog's reaction was one of pure, uncomplicated gratitude, sitting tall and looking up at Camilla with the expectant, shining eyes of a child seeking approval. The bitterness Camilla felt wasn't directed at the dog, but at the world that allowed such innocence to be discarded. She looked at the wagging tail and the scars of neglect, feeling the heavy pull of a responsibility she hadn't planned for. She hated this specific brand of vulnerability, the kind that was too soft for the harsh reality of the imperial capital, the kind that remained loyal even after being betrayed by the very hands that should have fed it. With a heavy sigh that carried the weight of her shifting priorities, Camilla reached out one last time to stroke the dog's head. The decision was made not out of business logic or political necessity, but out of a sudden, sharp inability to leave such a foolishly loving soul behind in the dirt. Unable to leave the innocent spirit to linger in the ruins of a home that was no longer hers, Camilla finally surrendered to her softer instincts, offering the ghost a place within her own walls.